Canvas, and I'm just going to show you guys, talk to you guys about the presentation. Okay. This is being recorded, so I want to be able to show you guys some information. I can just upload it to Canvas, so you guys can refer back to it as you need to. Okay. The next scene, there we go. Role in the team, chapter 1, that's what we're working on. There's objectives. We're going to talk about different roles, responsibilities of a team, talk about what a dynamic is, communication styles, and our relationship between the scheduling and budget. Just a little bit on that. Listening, speaking skills, it's hard and soft skills, so what are the differences between those. Written communication, talk about some technology, a little bit about what constructive criticism is, and interpersonal type of skills. Problem solving, strengths and weaknesses, and different job requirements. So those are the things that we're going to kind of talk about. On your notes, please make sure you use your computers to make notes, or if you want to use hard copy, that's fine too. You're expected to upload your notes to Canvas, so you guys can use that as study material, and you guys can get credit for that. Now there's two things. What a video game is. There's a game and a video game. Raise your hand. Give me an example of a game. Yes.
Monopoly.
Monopoly is a game. Good. Anybody else?
Sorry.
Sorry is a good game. What about before that? Yes.
Tic-tac-toe.
Tic-tac-toe. Good. Also on the playground, what kind of games have you guys played? Yeah.
Tag.
Tag. Good. Now, a video game is completely different. We have talked about a lot of those. The electronic games are what defines as a video game, and we play those all the time. We've talked about them in class. There's a difference. Remember, a video game has that screen, it's electronic. Okay? Make sure you understand the difference between a board game or a playground game and a video game. The designer is who creates that game. There's more than one person who can design a video game. It's not just one. Okay? It's not just one. Video game designers work as a team, and we're going to talk about what different types of a team are. We're going to get into what a team dynamic is. There are classes and workshops to help with employee skills because everything changes every single year. Things get more challenging, more difficult, but more experienced people understand these upgrades as ways to improve. You can't just stay with what you've learned. You have to become a life learner. Life learners will teach and learn until they're dead and gone. Be a life learner especially with technology, because if you don't stick up with the task, you're going to be behind everybody else, and you're not going to be able to get that high-paying job or continue with those promotions. Now, a dynamic, very simple. Let's say you have 4 people in a group. One of the people are very good with social skills. One person is very good with writing and storyboarding. One person is very good with computer programming. And the other person is very good with leading and being a project manager. You put those skills together, you have a really good dynamic. Okay? You got to have a good dynamic in order to utilize every single possible great skill or strong skill from those individuals. It's very different than if you had 4 people who each had great social skills. Right? Because you wouldn't be able to have very good programming. You would not have the best writing. You wouldn't have the best leadership. You want people with those 4 skills, or more than 4, not the same person though. Not the same type of people. The dynamic is utilizing those strengths beyond that one person, utilizing strengths from everybody. And that makes a really good team. Sometimes having that dynamic doesn't mean that you're going to work well with each other. And that's where there's a complexity. You got personal and business. You got to keep them separated. Okay? You can work good with a lot of great people in the professional world, but if you start to be friends or you kind of hang out and there's complications, you got to keep that separate. That is a very mature thing to be able to do. Sometimes it's hard because of pride. You got to keep those two things separate. And you'll learn that when you get older, and you'll have experiences of why that's so important. Constructive criticism is really cool. Sometimes you have constructive criticism and you use it to your advantage. You benefit from it. All right? You have a game that's being made, and you have someone talking back to you, giving you some ideas of how to fix it or improve it. You have, as the designer, you've got to be able to accept it. If you don't accept that constructive criticism, you become defensive. You're just going to have that wall up, and you're not going to be able to utilize their expertise. Now, on the other hand, if you're the person providing constructive criticism, it's got to be constructive. It can't be completely negative with a complete washout of what's going on. Okay, opinion is important in there, but also factual too. You can talk about Timberkirk High School. Other schools can constructively criticize it, saying that school has too much of a majority diversity. They focus more on a certain type of individual instead of all types of races and demographics. That's more of a judge, right? It's not really a constructive criticism. Constructive criticism can be, oh, their athletics is doing good, but I would suggest making, on Friday nights with football games, getting more light, or having more kiosks, more ability for people to be able to have food, or get some more areas for people to sit down. That would be a good constructive criticism, as opposed to saying, Friday night's football game, the football team is not very good, so I'm not going to go. That's not beneficial, right? So you got to make sure you utilize that as a person providing constructive criticism and a person who is taking it in. You cannot be defensive. Very important. All right. Now it goes into types of skills. Hard skills are the technology ones. Okay? You have technical requirements for jobs that obtain through training and research. These skills are physical attributes. Being able to use a program, being able to use a computer, being able to utilize technology available. There's hard skills, and then there's soft skills, which I'll get into, and actually, let me go into soft skills right now. The soft skills are more interpersonal. Responsibility, punctuality, dependability, positive attitude, respect, professional dress. All those are the soft skills. Hard skills are technology related and physical. Soft skills are more your touching. Soft skills are more interaction with other people, especially with a group and a dynamic. Okay? Remember, guys, you have the ability to get to this on your own. You don't have to type up and record type up everything that's on the screen. Let me go back to hard skills and move on to technology compliance. This is one of the questions that was asked earlier about being up to date on what's going on technology-wise. There's classes that you take that helps you with technology. They're the STEM classes. STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. You guys all have taken algebra or are taking it. You have or are taking geometry. You have or are taking chemistry or physics class, statistics. All those types of classes are those STEM type classes. Okay? And all those kind of classes are important to help you with up to date with technology compliance. There's things you do outside of class. This class, with gaming, with graphic design. Those skills you're using in here, and there's skills here that you can use in those other classes. It goes along with what I was saying earlier with being a life learner. Okay? Aesthetically, compliance is pretty much, when you're designing something, it's got to look good. It can't be all crazy seizure-like, giving people these medical conditions. You don't want that. Okay, you want to follow the principles of design, which I have over there to your left. Contrast, alignment, proximity, repetition. Follow those principles on your designs of your games, because you need to make sure that they are not hurting the user. You don't want everything with a big red background. Staring at a red background for a long period of time, the user might get a headache. Or flashing in different colors, neon colors. If that happens, the user isn't going to want to go back and play the game. They're not going to want to buy it. They're not going to want to do any kind of marketing or conversation to their friends. Oh, this is a great game, you should buy it. Instead, they're going to say, oh, that game gave me a headache. My friend's not going to want to get it. Okay? So it's important to have that aesthetic compliance. Make sure there's size, scale, color. Make sure that the design is set up correctly. Try it out. Create it. Use colors that you like. And all you got to do is take it to a friend and say, hey, what do you think about this? And they're going to give you that constructive criticism. Okay? Be able to go back and forth on each other. Technical writing. That usually isn't, an example of that is a video game manual. Video games don't really have manuals that much anymore. It's usually online, which works out. But usually what they've been doing is creating, when you start a game, you don't know how to do any of it, play the game at all. What they do is they make like a tutorial inside the game, right? Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Like back then, they had like this paper manual, so you just read through it, and then now with technology, we could just do a tutorial and just play the game.
Exactly. Now the tutorial helps you, and you get that hands-on experience while you're playing the game, and you feel like you're moving forward. Very good. But that technical writing is used to create that tutorial. Do you guys understand that? So it's still a pretty good job, and it's very important to have that job in gaming. All right? Narrative writing is like this, creating a story, and that's what storyboards come into play. Storyboards pretty much are the story of the game on paper or on some kind of electronic electronic picture, but it's like a comic book going along with the game. It has actions and it kind of shows a couple of things. It's not in great detail, but it gets the user and the designer and the programmer a good showing of what's going on. Okay, so a comic book is an example of a storyboard. Public speaking skills are important with game design. Of course, listening skills and compromise. You've got to have to be able to adjust with not only the rest of your team, but adjust with the culture and the target audience that you have. Yeah.
But isn't the storyboard things also like in movies and animated movies, like they just draw it out first before they do anything?
Right.
You know, like how it would work.
Yep, and they brainstorm. That's what a storyboard is, exactly. It works not just for gaming, it works for pretty much any possible media. All right? It's essential for game designers to have the ability to conduct research. Research, again, is another way of figuring out what kind of game you're creating. If you're going to create a game about space, and you're going to have asteroids, and you have spaceships and astronauts, and maybe some aliens, and whatever not, you don't want your character to be a race car driver. You know, driving, walking around with a race, or wearing a basketball player uniform. That doesn't make sense, right? It's got to fit the theme, fit the culture. You got to do research. You might have the ability to create a great game, but you might not know much about space. Or you're creating a racing game. You might not know much about creating a racing game, or what the racing assets are. So you got to be able to have the ability to create that, do that research as needed. So now as we go into soft skills, which I brought up earlier, responsibility, dependability, functionality. These are really important. This is also with life. You got to be a responsible person. your parents have to be able to depend on you to do what you gotta do, to get your homework done. You gotta be able to be on time with class or with due dates. Those are all soft skills. Showing a positive attitude, being respect for others. All that stuff is very important, especially in the industry. If you're being disrespectful and you lose your job, or you don't get that promotion and you leave your job, and you try to get another job, maybe with a competitor, most likely the word has gotten around that you're not a nice person to work with. You're going to be blacklisted. It's not good. So you don't want that. You want to show respect. Don't get me wrong. It's hard to work with people sometimes. Okay, you're your own person, I'm my own person. Sometimes you work with people and you don't mesh with very well. You have to deal with it. You have to be able to vent on your own, or you go home and you vent with your family, your wife, husband, kids, whatever it is, to get it out of your system. But when you're talking about jobs, we're going to get into different careers in a couple minutes. You cannot complain. You cannot be disrespectful to your coworkers or your boss. Because as a career move, that is a huge red light. And you won't be able to advance very far. Even if you move to a different state. Social media and the internet, the web, people can easily talk to each other within seconds, even across the country. Having these soft skills, being a good person, will really advance your design in your career and your role on a team. Being a team player is essential for designing, especially large video games. Most game companies assign jobs based on experience, skills, and needs to design a project. You guys are young, but you still have a lot of things that you've done. You should create a portfolio to help you guys be able to show off your work. Whether not just your transcript for school, but also any kind of design material you've done, anything within this class or other STEM type classes. And have a portfolio, have a way to be able to show that off and use it. You kind of feel bad because it's kind of like you're bragging, and you kind of get the idea that you're being narcissistic, which is all about you. Sometimes you have to do that. Not all the time. Being humble is important. But sometimes you have to show off and brag off, because otherwise no one knows any different. Okay? All right. A specialist is someone with strong abilities in a certain area. For example, writing, coding, design. Common misconception of design teams is that all people have to have equal say. That is not true. Okay? It is not a democracy. Everyone voting on what might be the best option. Okay, everyone has a supervisor, and the supervisor has the final word. Yeah, in a dynamic and a team, you want to be able to think that everyone has their equal say and no one's offended, and that everybody has this happy and glorified lifestyle. But no. Sometimes in a team, you have to be aggressive or play your role to where you're not that leader yet. Or you will be on the next time. You can't have all these heads butting. You have to know your role. If you're the writer, be the writer. If you have a suggestion on what another person on your team is doing, go ahead and suggest it. If it works out, great. Brainstorm. If they turn it down, if the project manager, if the supervisor says no, then accept it. You can write a note. You can say that you've tried. You can use it as backup. But not everybody is the supervisor. There's only one project lead. So you have to make sure you know your role. Interdisciplinary team is composed of members with different skills assigned to a single project. Teammates work together and share ideas on the final project when it's completed. And the large project is where usually you have a creative director to assign the vision and direction of what the game's going to go. Interdisciplinary team, composed of members with different skills assigned to a project. That's what that type of team is called. It's a little different than what a dynamic is. Dynamic is using those strong skills. This is an interdisciplinary team where those members use those skills on a single project. Okay? Now we're kind of going to get more into what the management is and the different types of jobs. There are literally thousands of jobs, sometimes 3,000 to 5,000 jobs that goes into creating a video game. Even if your career is not going to be in video game, jobs are available to be used, and you don't even know you're being a part of creation of a video game. The project manager is the lead. Now I'm going to show you a table to kind of give this like a breakdown of what's going on. Who's on top, who's in the middle, and all that kind of stuff. The lead designer is the person who reports to the creative director on day-to-day issues on designing of, whether it's the level, the project, the game, the sound, or any of the assets. The game designer reports to the lead designer and the lead programmer and makes the game work according to vision. Now guys, you don't have to memorize whatever one of these things do. Just know. Just think about it. And you'll be able to recognize. Okay, don't go home and start memorizing all these terms and all these jobs. I want you guys to get an idea of what's out there. You can refer back to it if you need to. Level designer is responsible for creating the levels, one level at a time. Works good with the programmer. The interface designer creates controls that the player uses to move, whether it's left, right, up, down, all that kind of stuff. Sideways, jumping high, jumping lower, being able to move while they're in mid-air jumping, defying the laws of physics. It's really up to the interface designer and how the project is going. Okay? Game writers, is obvious, they write the game, the storyline. They have a major role. They're like the very beginning of the process. And they communicate well with the art designers, the audio, and the testers. Beta, alpha, those kind of testers. Okay? But those writers, art designers, audio engineers, all those are key roles in video games. It's not just the project and the lead and the level designer. It's beyond that. And here's a pretty good pretty good chart to show you guys what's going on. Let me see if I can write on this. Not. The project manager is in the middle. Okay, he or she leads the whole project. Did you? Okay, good. Thank you. Then you have all these people with certain skills: animation, sound, programming, writing. There's more animation. Programming, tech technician, engineering, 2D, 3D, all those guys, okay? Now, when you look at this person's in charge, right? The directors are pretty important too. Raise your hand. Which color person makes the most money? Yellow, gray, blue, red, green, or orange? Yes. Gray. Anybody else? Yeah.
Orange.
Huh? What color?
Orange.
Orange. Anybody else? Yeah. Yellow. Anybody else? Okay. I'll get back to that in a second. These creative directors and technology directors, those are the guys in charge of the entire process, the entire company. They do get a lot of money. Probably a little more than the project manager. If something goes wrong, who loses their job? Huh? Either gray or yellow. depending on how much money is lost. Okay? With the right amount of experience, do you think anybody could become gray?
Yeah.
With the right amount of experience, do you think anybody can become yellow? Yeah. Can anybody become a hardware engineer, an animator, a lead programmer, or a writer? Can anybody do that? No, you have that skill, right? So think about it. Anybody can become these guys, but not everybody can become this, right? These guys would just have some leadership or management skills, or they took a class in management. Or they knew somebody. The orange people, green, and the red people, just because they're lower management, doesn't mean they make a lot of money. Many times, they make just as much or more money than the gray and the yellow. So, it's very important to recognize jobs in management, jobs in technology, STEM, animation, sound, programming. Sometimes they make just as much or more money than all those people in the lines. And here's the cool thing. Usually, if something goes wrong, these are the people who take all the blame, right? On the flip side, if everything goes really well, they usually get all the credit. And this guy just gets a little gift card. Oh, thanks for your job. Good job. Above and beyond. So, recognize the differences. It's really important to recognize that you could also not only become an animator, a designer, a programmer. You don't have to just become that or just become a project leader or a director. You could also be both. How can you be both? In charge of management and in charge of the animation and the programming. How could that be? How could you do that? Huh?
Indie project.
Yeah, you be your own entrepreneur. You start your own company. You create your own stuff. You go through the process of being in charge. And you learn along the way. It's not easy, but it'll happen. Okay? You gotta have that drive, that push to become better. Get through those obstacles. There's money, there's funding, there's time out there. You just have to be able to prioritize. All right? I think I broke it. Does anybody have questions on what we talked about? Oh, there is one more. Does anybody have questions on what we talked about? Okay. It's really critical for you guys to recognize how important constructive criticism is. What a dynamic is. What the different jobs are out there. If you're not good at programming, or if you don't want to learn it, but you want to be in the field, okay. Get involved with graphic design, with animation. If you're really good at writing, and you want to be a writer, you can write for video game companies. If you're great at sound and chorus and band, you can create music for video games and animation. Every time that song plays, you can be like, oh, I was a part of that. Okay? There's tons of jobs out there. Tons of jobs. Take advantage of what's there and become what you want to become. Don't let society push you away. The last thing is make sure you take in constructive criticism. This is hard to do sometimes. Very hard to do because you have pride in the way. You don't want to take. You spend hours on a situation, months on a game, and someone comes in and says, "This is bad. This is bad. This is bad." I know it hurts, it's like a dagger in the heart, but you take it in. You get multiple sources to criticize what you've done, and you make it better. Okay, take that in, not just for gaming, but also for life. Okay? Does anybody have questions?